Welcome back to another exciting episode of Coins Numismatic Series. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the Lincoln penny, one of the most collected, most recognizable, and most beloved coins in American history. That we're talking about the top 10 Lincoln pennies 1-cent coins that could turn an ordinary cent into an extraordinary story of history, rarity, and sometimes even serious value. For over a century, the Lincoln cent has been a tiny but powerful piece of American culture. Introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than a symbolic figure. So grab your magnifying glass, sit back, and let's start our numismatic journey with the first coin on our list. 1986 D. Lincoln Penny 1-cent coin. The 1986 D. Lincoln penny may look ordinary at first glance, but it holds a special place in the numismatic world, not because of extreme rarity, but because it captures an important transition in the life of the Lincoln cent and showcases how even modern-era coins can become fascinating collectibles. Historical context. The year was 1986. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, the Cold War was still very real, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to fuel America's booming economy. By this time, the Lincoln Memorial reverse design had already been in circulation for nearly 3 decades, having replaced the original, wheat ears, reverse in 1959. The penny had also gone through a dramatic transformation just a few years earlier. In 1982, due to rising copper prices, the mint shifted from using a nearly pure copper planchet, 95% copper, 5% zinc, to a primarily zinc planchet, 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating. By 1986, every penny struck was of the zinc composition, lighter, cheaper to produce, and sometimes prone to issues like plating bubbles and surface deterioration. The Denver Mint, indicated by the small D mint mark beneath the date on the obverse, struck over 4.2 billion of these coins in 1986. While that number sounds massive, collectors know that even in such a sea of production, anomalies and unique features can make certain pieces stand out. Design features. The 1986 D penny features the same design that Americans had grown familiar with for decades. Obverse, Abraham Lincoln's bust, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909. The portrait is detailed yet compact, with Lincoln facing right. Above his head is the motto, "In God We Trust," to his left, "Liberty," and to his right the date, 1986, with the D mint mark below. Reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Casparo. It replaced the wheat ears reverse in 1959 and remained until 2008. Collectors often love examining the memorial reverse under magnification because, with sharp strikes, you can actually see the tiny seated statue of Lincoln between the columns, a coin within a coin. Surrounding the memorial are United States of America above and 1 cent below, with the motto E pluribus unum across the top. Even though billions were made, details like strike quality, planchet condition, and minting errors can elevate a 1986 D from pocket change to prized collectible. Mintage and survival. The Denver Mint struck 4,379,496,000 pennies in 1986. That's nearly 4.5 billion coins, one of the highest mintages in U.S. history. With such numbers, most 1986 D pennies are extremely common in circulated condition. However, condition is everything in numismatics. Circulated examples are virtually always worth face value. Mint state examples, uncirculated, straight from rolls or mint sets, start to show small premiums, especially in grades MS65 and above. High-end gems, MS67 and MS68, are very rare, and these are the coins that collectors compete fiercely for at auction. Population reports from grading services like PCGS and NGC show that while tens of thousands of these coins have been graded, only a small handful survive in top-tier condition. Errors and varieties. Here's where the 1986 D gets exciting. Despite its massive production, a variety of mint errors have been found, making certain coins highly desirable. Off-center strikes. Some pennies were struck slightly or significantly off-center, resulting in missing portions of the design. Collectors value these depending on how much of the coin is missing. Double dies, though not as famous as earlier double-die pennies, like the 1955, some minor doubling varieties exist in the 1986 D, particularly in the lettering. BIE errors. This is when a die crack appears between the B and E of Liberty, making it look like there's an extra letter, I. These little quirks are popular among Lincoln cent specialists. Plating bubbles and errors. Because of the zinc core with copper plating, some coins show raised bubbles, peeling, or other anomalies. Severe examples are collected as mint errors. These errors elevate an otherwise common penny into a coin worth far more than 1 cent. Market value. So, what is the 1986 D Lincoln penny worth today? Circulated condition, almost always 1 cent. Uncirculated, MS63, MS64 $0.50 to $2. Gem condition, MS65, MS66 $5 to $25. Superb condition, MS67 $100 to $200. Top grade, MS68 red over $2,000 at auction in rare cases. Error coins can be worth anywhere from $25 to several $100s depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Collector interest. At first glance, a 1986 D may not seem like a key date or a treasure. But collectors of modern Lincoln cents know that these coins represent a crucial era, the age of copper-plated zinc. Many young collectors who grew up in the 1980s remember finding these shiny new pennies in change. And nostalgia alone fuels interest. For advanced collectors, the challenge lies in finding a perfect example, an MS68 red with flawless surfaces. These are extraordinarily rare, considering the softness of zinc and the ease with which these coins spot, tone, or corrode. Error collectors are also constantly hunting for dramatic misstrikes from this era, and the 1986 D provides a fertile ground for discoveries. Why it makes the top 10. The 1986 D earns a spot in our top 10 Lincoln pennies list because it symbolizes the modern Lincoln cent era and demonstrates how even a coin produced by the billions can become rare and valuable when you consider condition, errors, and collector demand. It reminds us that every penny has a story, and sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins carry the most extraordinary surprises. So the next time you're going through pocket change or an old jar of coins, don't ignore the 1986 D. With sharp eyes, you might just find a hidden gem. 1996 Lincoln Penny 1 cent coin. The 1996 Lincoln Penny is a coin that many people still have rattling around in their change jars today, but just because it feels modern doesn't mean it isn't worth taking a closer look. As with so many Lincoln cents, the real story is in the details. Condition, errors, and collector demand all combine to make the 1996 penny a surprisingly important piece for numismatists. Historical context. By 1996, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for 87 years. For nearly 9 decades, Americans had carried Lincoln's portrait in their pockets every day. The coin had seen the transition from wheat ears reverse, 1909 to 1958, to the Lincoln Memorial reverse, 1959 to 2008. It had also seen the important composition change in 1982, when copper prices forced the mint to adopt the copper-plated zinc planchet. The mid-1990s were a period of economic strength in America. Bill Clinton was president, technology and internet use were expanding rapidly, and the U.S. Mint was still striking billions of Lincoln cents each year to meet demand. With such huge mintages, many collectors assume modern pennies have no value, but that's where things get interesting. Design features. The 1996 penny carries the familiar design that collectors and non-collectors alike instantly recognize. Obverse, Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, still going strong after nearly 9 decades. Above Lincoln is the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left is Liberty. To the right is the date, 1996, which may appear with or without a mint mark depending on where it was struck. A small D indicates Denver, an S indicates San Francisco, proof coins, and the absence of a mint mark indicates Philadelphia. Reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo, showing the iconic neoclassical monument in Washington, D.C. In sharp strikes, collectors can see the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. The inscriptions include United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. Even though billions were minted, strike quality, surface condition, and errors can all create collectible demand. Mintage and survival. The mintage figures for 1996 Lincoln cents were massive. Philadelphia, 6,612,465,000. Denver, 6,510,800,000. San Francisco proofs, 2,525,265. That's over 13 billion pennies in circulation from that year alone. It's no surprise that most 1996 pennies are worth only face value in circulated condition. But as always, survival in top condition is the key to collectability. Circulated examples, face value. Mint State Red examples, start to fetch premiums at MS65 and above. Top-end gems, MS67, MS68 Red extremely rare, and worth hundreds or even thousands at auction. Errors and varieties. The 1996 penny has its fair share of error coins and varieties that keep collectors hunting. Double die obverse, DDO. Some examples show doubling on the date and lettering, though not as dramatic as the famous 1955 or 1969's double dies. Still, they are collected and valued. Wide AM reverse variety, 1996 close AM. One of the most exciting finds in modern Lincoln cents. On some 1996 pennies, the letters A and M in America on the reverse are closer together than they should be. The normal design shows a wider spacing. The close AM is a rare variety and can be worth significant money. Off-center strikes, depending on how far off the strike is, these can be worth anywhere from $20 to several $100s. Clipped planchets, coins struck on planchets missing a portion of the metal, creating a bite out of the coin. Collectors pay well for dramatic clips. Plating bubbles and errors. As with all copper-plated zinc cents, some 1996 pennies suffer from bubbling or peeling of the thin copper coating. Dramatic examples are collectible. Market value. Values for the 1996 penny vary widely. Circulated, 1 cent. Uncirculated MS65 red, $5 to $10. MS66 red, $25 to $50. MS67 red, $200 to $500. MS68 red, $1,000 plus in rare cases. Error coins can multiply these values many times. For example, a close AM variety can sell for $500 to $2,000 depending on condition. Collector interest. The 1996 penny is a fascinating coin because it's still modern enough that people sometimes dismiss it, but sharp-eyed collectors know it's a year full of potential finds. Young collectors enjoy searching rolls and pocket change for varieties, while seasoned numismatists chase those top-grade MS68 examples and rare close AM reverses. The 1996 penny reminds us that even coins we grew up spending every day can become hidden treasures with the right combination of condition, error, and rarity. Why it makes the top 10. The 1996 Lincoln penny makes our top 10 list because it perfectly represents the thrill of modern coin roll hunting. Billions were minted, but hidden among them are rare close AM varieties, stunning error coins, and ultra-high-grade survivors that can be worth thousands. It's a coin that rewards patience, knowledge, and the collector's eye. 1975 Lincoln penny 1 cent coin. The 1975 Lincoln penny might not scream rarity at first glance, but it's a fascinating transitional coin that bridges the gap between the copper-dominated cents of old and the zinc era soon to come. Collectors love it for its affordability, its history, and the occasional hidden gem that shows up in the right condition. Historical context. 1975 was a pivotal year in American history. The Vietnam War had just ended, Gerald Ford was president, and the U.S. was celebrating its bicentennial spirit as 1976 approached. At the U.S. Mint, preparations were underway for the special bicentennial coinage of 1976, but the penny remained unchanged. The Lincoln cent in 1975 was still struck in its traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc composition, weighing 3.11 grams. This makes it one of the last, classic copper, pennies before the switch to zinc planchets in 1982. For collectors who love the sound, feel, and durability of copper cents, the 1975 penny holds a nostalgic charm. Design features. The design of the 1975 penny continued the tradition. Obverse, Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln. The inscriptions are, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1975, to the right. Depending on the mint, the penny may have a D for Denver or no mint mark for Philadelphia. Proof coins from San Francisco carry an asterisk S. Reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, still proudly displayed as the reverse design. Collectors often enjoy examining the reverse to see how well the tiny statue of Lincoln is visible within the memorial. The 1975 penny may not look unusual, but it's part of the broader story of copper cents nearing their final years. Mintage and survival. Mintages for 1975 were extremely high. Philadelphia, 5,451,476,142. Denver, 4,505,275,300. San Francisco proofs, 2,845,450. That's nearly 10 billion pennies produced in 1 year. With such a staggering mintage, most 1975 pennies are common in all grades below gem condition. Circulated, worth face value. Mint state examples, common through MS-65, but higher grades become scarcer. Proofs. The San Francisco proofs are popular with collectors, especially deep cameo examples in pristine condition. Errors and varieties. The 1975 penny does not have a famous double die or dramatic variety like some other Lincoln cents, but it does have interesting errors that keep collectors interested. Off-center strikes, popular among collectors, especially those showing 50% or more off-center while retaining a full date. Die breaks, cuds raised blobs of metal on the coin caused by die cracks. Some 1975 pennies exhibit dramatic cuds that are highly collectible. BIE errors, die cracks between the B and E of Liberty, forming what looks like an extra I. A classic Lincoln cent error. Clipped planchets, occasional coins struck on incomplete planchets create curved clips that collectors value. Proof errors. A few proof strikes from San Francisco show issues like double strikes or mirrored die polishing lines, making them unusual collectibles. Market value. While most 1975 pennies remain common, the real value is in pristine condition. Circulated, 1 cent. MS-65 red, $5 to $10. MS-66 red, $20 to $40. MS-67 red, $200 to $400. Proof deep cameo PR69, $30 to $100, depending on market trends. Error coins can fetch anywhere from $25 to several $100s. Collector interest. Collectors are drawn to the 1975 penny for several reasons. It represents the last few years of the 95% copper composition before rising metal prices forced change. It ties into the historical era of the mid-1970s, with America on the brink of its bicentennial celebrations. It's affordable and easy for beginners to collect in circulated grades, while still offering challenges for advanced collectors chasing top-graded red examples. Why it makes the top 10. The 1975 Lincoln penny earns a spot in our top 10 because it embodies the end of an era for copper cents. While not rare in circulated form, high-grade examples and errors command serious collector interest. It's a coin that teaches us the importance of condition, history, and attention to details. 1964 Lincoln penny 1 cent coin. The 1964 Lincoln penny may not strike most people as rare, but in numismatics, even the most common-seeming years can hide remarkable stories. This coin captures a transitional moment in America's coinage history and continues to fascinate collectors with its sheer numbers, copper composition, and occasional remarkable errors. Historical context. 1964 was a turbulent year in the United States. The country was in the midst of the Civil Rights Movement, Lyndon B. Johnson had just signed the Civil Rights Act, and America was edging deeper into Vietnam. At the U.S. Mint, production was booming to meet coin shortages across the country. Importantly, 1964 marks the last year that coins were struck in large quantities using traditional high-copper alloys before the mint began exploring debasement in other denominations, such as silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars. While silver was being phased out of larger coins, the penny remained copper-based, still 95% copper and 5% zinc/tin. For many collectors, the 1964 Lincoln penny represents the last gasp of an older era of American coinage. Design features. Obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, Lincoln's portrait remained unchanged since 1909. The inscriptions include, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1964, to the right. A small D beneath the date indicates Denver, while Philadelphia issues carry no mint mark. Reverse, The Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, still decorated the reverse with its neoclassical columns. Collectors can see Lincoln's tiny seated figure inside if the strike is sharp. Surrounding inscriptions include United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. Though the design was familiar, the year 1964's immense production and transitional significance give this penny a place in numismatic study. Mintage and survival. The 1964 penny was struck in enormous numbers, reflecting America's high demand for coinage. Philadelphia, 2,648,575,000. Denver, 3,799,071,500. Proofs, San Francisco 3,950,762. This totals nearly 6.5 billion coins minted. With such numbers, it's no surprise that the vast majority of 1964 pennies are common. Circulated examples, worth face value. Mint state examples, common through MS-64, but scarcer at MS-66 and above. Proofs, popular with collectors, especially cameo and deep cameo examples. Errors and varieties. While the 1964 penny doesn't boast a famous double die like earlier issues, it does have several collectible varieties and errors. Double die obverse, DDO. Some coins show doubling on the lettering, particularly Liberty and In God We Trust. BIE error, die cracks between the B and E of Liberty create the illusion of an extra I. Off-center strikes, highly collectible depending on how much of the coin is off-center. Clipped planchets, coins with missing metal along the rim due to faulty planchet preparation. Proof varieties, some proofs display strong cameo contrast, making them worth more than typical proofs. Market value. Here's a breakdown of values. Circulated, 1 cent. MS-65 red, $10 to $20. MS-66 red, $50 to $75. MS-67 red, $300 to $500. Proof PR-65, $5 to $10. Proof deep cameo PR-68, $200 plus. Error coins add a multiplier, with dramatic off-center or clipped planchet examples selling for $50 to $300 depending on severity. Collector interest. The 1964 penny may not be rare in circulation, but it has lasting appeal. It represents the last years of heavy copper coinage before major changes hit U.S. coinage in 1965, with the removal of silver from dimes and quarters. Many people alive today still recall seeing shiny new 1964 pennies in circulation, giving the coin a nostalgic pull. For specialists, the hunt for ultra-gem red examples or deep cameo proofs remains a rewarding challenge. 1981 Lincoln penny 1 cent coin. At first glance, the 1981 penny might look completely ordinary. Billions were struck, and countless remain in circulation today. But for collectors, 1981 holds a special place as the last full year before the mint transitioned away from traditional copper pennies. This makes it one of the most important, modern, Lincoln cents to study and collect. Historical context. By the early 1980s, the cost of copper had risen so dramatically that producing a 95% copper penny was no longer economical. In fact, by 1981, the metal content of a penny was worth nearly its face value. The U.S. Mint began experimenting with cheaper alternatives. In 1982, the mint officially transitioned to copper-plated zinc planchets. That makes 1981 the last year in which all regular issue pennies were made with the full copper alloy. For many collectors, this gives the 1981 penny a kind of end of an era status. Design features. Obverse, Lincoln's familiar bust by Victor David Brenner. Inscriptions include, In God We Trust, above, Liberty, to the left, and the date, 1981, to the right. Depending on the mint, the coin may show a D for Denver or no mint mark for Philadelphia. Proofs struck in San Francisco carry an asterisk, S. Reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design, continuing from 1959. The detailed rendering of the memorial and inscriptions remain unchanged. The 1981 penny appears ordinary in design, but the details of its production make it numismatically important. Mintage and survival. Mintages for 1981 were massive, reflecting the mint's need to keep up with national demand. Philadelphia, 7,491,750,000. Denver, 5,373,235,677. San Francisco proofs, 4,063,083. That's nearly 13 billion pennies struck in 1 year, one of the highest totals in the Lincoln cent series. Circulated examples, worth face value. Uncirculated examples, readily available, though top grades become much scarcer. Proofs. 1981's proofs are especially notable because the mint made both Type 1 and Type 2 mintmark varieties. Errors and varieties. Collectors often chase the varieties and errors of 1981. Proof mintmark varieties, S-Type 1 and S-Type 2. Type 1, filled, S, mintmark. Type 2, clear, sharp, S, mintmark. The Type 2 is scarcer and more valuable. BIE errors, die cracks between the B and E of Liberty. Off-center strikes, common but collectible. Clipped planchets, add collector value. Die breaks and cuds, particularly popular with error collectors. Market value. For such a common coin, 1981 pennies can surprise in the right condition. Circulated, 1 cent. MS-65 red, $2 to $5. MS-66 red, $15 to $30. MS-67 red, $250 to $400. Proof PR-65, $5 to $10. Proof Type 2 PR-69 Deep Cameo, $200 plus. Error coins vary widely, with proof varieties and dramatic misstrikes fetching premium prices. Collector interest. The 1981 penny is beloved by collectors for several reasons. It represents the last full year of copper cents before the 1982 switch. The proof varieties offer a fun and rewarding hunt. It remains affordable for beginners while offering challenges for advanced collectors seeking perfect gems. 1976 D. Lincoln Penny 1 cent coin. The 1976 D. Lincoln penny often gets overshadowed by the bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollars of that same year. After all, those coins carried special dual-dated designs to celebrate America's 200th birthday. The humble penny, however, didn't change design in 1976, it remained the same. But far from being overlooked. The 1976 D penny tells a fascinating story about the mint's production, America's economic environment, and the enduring place of Lincoln's portrait in U.S. coinage. Historical context. In 1976, the nation was celebrating its bicentennial. Every American was reminded of the 200-year anniversary of independence, and the mint was producing billions of special quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins with the dates 1776 to 1976. But the Lincoln penny stayed unchanged. Why? Because the design of the penny had already been set, Lincoln's obverse and the Lincoln Memorial reverse. That makes the 1976 D penny a kind of silent witness to the bicentennial celebrations. It didn't carry a special design, but it still formed the backbone of American pocket change that year. The composition was still the classic 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing 3.11 grams. This was several years before the 1982 transition to zinc. Design features. The 1976 D penny carried the standard design. Obverse, Abraham Lincoln's portrait by Victor David Brenner. Above his head reads, "In God We Trust," with "Liberty" to the left and the date, 1976, to the right. Beneath the date is the small D mintmark for Denver, where this coin was struck. Reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial. Collectors prize coins with crisp strikes that show the tiny seated statue of Lincoln between the columns. Inscriptions include United States of America above, E pluribus unum across, and 1 cent below. Although familiar, the 1976 D design represents the endurance of Lincoln's image during a historic American milestone. Mintage and survival. The Denver Mint produced a staggering 4,221,592,455 pennies in 1976. With over 4 billion struck, the 1976 D penny is anything but rare in circulated condition. Circulated examples, face value. Mint state, MS63, MS65 common and affordable. High-end gems, MS66, MS67 red much scarcer and command premium prices. Collectors focus on finding examples with blazing red color and minimal marks, which is rare after nearly 50 years. Errors and varieties. 1976 D pennies provide some fun opportunities for error collectors. BIE errors, die cracks between the B and E of Liberty forming an extra I. Off-center strikes, ranging from mild to dramatic, with values increasing the more off-center the strike is. Clipped planchets, coins with curved sections missing due to faulty planchet cutting. Cuds, die breaks that create raised blobs of metal, sometimes dramatically altering the rim. Double die varieties. Though no major double dies are attributed to 1976 D, some minor doubling exists and appeals to specialists. Market value. Here's how values break down. Circulated, 1 cent. MS65 red, $5 to $10. MS66 red, $30 to $50. MS67 red, $250 to $400. Proof versions, from 1976 S, not Denver $10 to $50 depending on grade and cameo quality. Error coins can range from $25 to $300 depending on the severity. Collector interest. While not considered rare, the 1976 D penny has nostalgic appeal. It represents the U.S. bicentennial era, tying into one of the most celebrated years in coinage history. Collectors often want one to complete a full, bicentennial year set, even though the penny design did not change. High-grade gems remain a challenge, offering excitement for registry collectors. 1977 Lincoln Penny 1 cent coin. The 1977 Lincoln Penny may appear modest, but it is a coin full of charm for collectors. It sits at an interesting point in numismatic history, representing one of the last strong years of copper pennies before inflation and rising metal costs began to change the future of the cent. Historical context. 1977 was a year of cultural and political shifts in America. Jimmy Carter became president, Star Wars premiered in theaters, and the U.S. Mint was still producing billions of copper pennies for circulation. The Lincoln cent remained the workhorse of American change, struck in huge numbers at both Philadelphia and Denver. At this time, inflation was increasing, and the cost of producing pennies was rising. But the Mint continued to strike them in their full 95% copper alloy, weighing 3.11 grams each. This gives 1977 pennies a different feel compared to the lighter zinc cents of today. Design features. Obverse, Abraham Lincoln's portrait by Victor David Brenner. Inscriptions include, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1977, to the right. Denver coins carry a D mint mark, while Philadelphia coins do not have a mint mark. Reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial. Collectors appreciate strong strikes that reveal Lincoln's statue between the columns. The inscriptions, "United States of America," "E Pluribus Unum," and "1 cent," frame the design. The design may not have changed, but the penny's place in circulation was being reconsidered as costs rose. Mintage and survival. Mintage numbers for 1977 were huge. Philadelphia, 4,469,930,000. Denver, 4,194,062,300. San Francisco proofs, 3,251,152. With over 8.6 billion circulation strikes, the 1977 penny is extremely common in worn grades. Circulated, face value. Mint state, MS65 red scarce but collectible. High-end, MS67 red rare and valuable. Proofs, affordable in lower grades, but deep cameo examples bring higher prices. Errors and varieties. The 1977 penny offers several interesting collectible errors. Double die obverse. Some coins show minor doubling on the lettering, though dramatic examples are rare. BIE errors, die cracks forming extra I in Liberty. Off-center strikes, always popular, with values increasing with dramatic off-centering. Clipped planchets, curved clips are seen on some examples. Cuds, raised areas caused by die breaks, sometimes quite dramatic. Market value. Values for 1977 pennies depend heavily on condition. Circulated, 1 cent. MS-65 red, $5 to $10. MS-66 red, $30 to $50. MS-67 red, $300 to $600. Proofs, PR69 deep cameo $50 to $100 plus. Error coins can fetch anywhere from $25 to several hundred depending on uniqueness. Collector interest. Collectors like the 1977 penny because it represents one of the last true copper years before inflation and change began looming in the 1980s. High-grade red examples are challenging and valuable. It has plenty of fun errors to hunt. 1979 D. Lincoln penny 1 cent coin. The 1979 D. Lincoln penny is one of those coins that billions of Americans saw, spent, and forgot about, but numismatists know that even the most common-looking cents can tell fascinating stories. Minted in Denver during a decade of inflation, it offers insights into America's economy, the challenges of coin production, and the enduring legacy of Lincoln on our smallest denomination. Historical context. The year was 1979. Jimmy Carter was president, inflation was surging, and the mint was under pressure to keep America's coin supply flowing smoothly. By now, the Lincoln Memorial Reverse had been in place for 2 decades, and pennies remained an essential part of everyday transactions. The penny was still being struck in its traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy, weighing 3.11 grams. But economic forces were already making the mint nervous. Rising copper costs foreshadowed the changes that would come in just a few years when zinc planchets replaced copper in 1982. The Denver Mint, identified by the D mint mark, was responsible for producing billions of pennies, many of which are still found in circulation today. Design features. Obverse, Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Inscriptions include, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1979, to the right with a small D mint mark below. Reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial, with "United States of America," above, "E Pluribus Unum," across the top, and 1 cent below. In sharp strikes, the seated figure of Lincoln inside the memorial can be seen with a magnifying glass. The design had not changed, but each year's production had subtle differences in strike quality, planchet quality, and errors. Mintage and survival. The 1979 D penny was struck in staggering numbers. Denver Mint, 4,139,357,254 coins. That's over 4.1 billion pennies from Denver alone, making it one of the most common issues in the series. Circulated examples. Extremely common, worth only face value. Uncirculated examples, MS-63, MS-65 available in rolls and bags but affordable. Gem red examples, MS-66, MS-67 scarcer and more valuable. Errors and varieties. Even common date pennies can harbor fascinating errors, and the 1979 D is no exception. BIE errors, small die cracks between the B and E of Liberty. Off-center strikes, depending on how far off, these errors range from $20 to $200 plus. Clipped planchets, a curved section missing, collectible depending on size. Cuds, raised blobs caused by die breaks, highly desirable in dramatic examples. Die cracks and breaks, some coins show lines or raised ridges from aging dies. Market value. Here's how 1979 D pennies are valued today. Circulated, 1 cent. MS-65 red, $2 to $5. MS-66 red, $20 to $40. MS-67 red, $200 to $400. Major errors, $25 to $300 plus. While the majority remain common, gem condition coins and dramatic errors can be worth far more than face value. Collector interest. Collectors chase the 1979 D penny for several reasons. It's part of the last years of full copper cents before the 1982 changeover. High-grade red examples are genuinely scarce due to copper's tendency to tone or spot over decades. Error specialists love this year because so many die states and flaws exist among billions of strikes. 1969 D Lincoln penny 1-cent coin. The 1969 D Lincoln penny holds a unique spot in American coinage history, not because of its Denver issue itself, but because of the incredible story of double dies that surfaced from this year. While the famous 1969 S double die cent is the star of the series, the 1969 D issue provides an essential backdrop and remains an important collectible in its own right. Historical context. 1969 was a momentous year in America. Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, Woodstock drew hundreds of thousands to celebrate music and culture, and Richard Nixon became president. At the same time, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to support a growing economy. The Lincoln cent was struck in its copper alloy, 95% copper, 5% zinc/tin, just as it had been since 1909. But the year became infamous for one of the most famous double die obverse varieties ever discovered, the 1969 S. The Denver Mint's coins didn't produce that dramatic variety, but they remain a key part of the story and a collectible in their own right. Design features. Obverse, Abraham Lincoln's bust by Victor David Brenner, with "In God We Trust" above, Liberty to the left, and the date, 1969, to the right. Beneath the date is the D mint mark for Denver. Reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial, with inscriptions, United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. The design remained familiar, but the context of 1969 makes this year's pennies particularly interesting. Mintage and survival. The Denver Mint struck a massive 4,002,832,200 pennies in 1969. With over 4 billion minted, the coin is very common in circulated grades. Circulated examples, worth face value. Mint state red examples, MS-65 plus scarcer, especially in fully red condition. High-grade gems, MS-67 red rare and valuable. Errors and varieties. The 1969 D does not include the famous double die, that belongs to San Francisco, but it still offers notable varieties and errors. BIE errors, die cracks forming an extra I in Liberty. Die cracks and cuds, popular with error collectors. Off-center strikes, valued depending on severity. Clipped planchets, collectible with dramatic clips. Minor doubling, some minor double dies are known, though not nearly as dramatic as the 1969 S. Market value. The 1969 D penny is generally common, but values spike at higher grades. Circulated, 1 cent. MS-65 red, $10 to $20. MS-66 red, $50 to $100. MS-67 red, $500 to $1,000. Errors, $25 to $300 plus depending on type. Collector interest. Collectors are drawn to the 1969 D for several reasons. It connects to the famous 1969 S double die story, which remains one of the most dramatic and valuable varieties in U.S. coinage. It's a high-mintage copper cent, and pristine red examples are far scarcer than the numbers suggest. 1973 Lincoln penny 1-cent coin. The 1973 Lincoln penny may not look like much at first glance. It's a copper coin millions of Americans used in vending machines, pocket change, and cash registers. But in numismatics, even the most ordinary years can hide extraordinary stories. The 1973 penny is an important collectible because of its place in history, its role in the larger Lincoln cent series, and its challenge to find in pristine condition. Historical context. The year was 1973. The United States was deep in the Watergate scandal, Vietnam was winding down, and inflation was slowly creeping into everyday life. Coins were still essential for transactions, and the penny continued to be the smallest unit of exchange in circulation. In 1973, the Lincoln cent was struck in its classic copper alloy, 95% copper and 5% zinc/tin, weighing 3.11 grams. It was one of the last decades before copper costs began pushing the mint toward cheaper metals, which would culminate in the 1982 switch to zinc. At the time, the Lincoln Memorial reverse had been in place for 14 years, since 1959, and the design was fully familiar to the public. But familiarity didn't make it unimportant. These pennies were the backbone of America's change. Design features. The 1973 Lincoln penny carried the same iconic features collectors know well. Obverse, Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln. In God We Trust, arches above his head, Liberty sits to the left, and the date, 1973, is to the right. Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, Denver coins bore a small D, and San Francisco coins carried an S for proofs. Reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design. Across the top is United States of America, below that E pluribus unum, and across the bottom 1 cent. On sharp strikes, the tiny seated statue of Lincoln is visible within the memorial. The artistry lies in the details, and collectors prize coins with strong strikes and bright, original red surfaces. Mintage and survival. Mintage for the 1973 pennies was massive, but split across 3 mints. Philadelphia, 3,728,245,000. Denver, 3,549,576,588. San Francisco, 317,177,259, circulation strikes. Proofs, San Francisco 2,760,339. Combined, more than 7.5 billion pennies were struck in 1973. That makes circulated coins extremely common. Circulated, face value. Uncirculated rolls/bags, still available but increasingly collected. High-grade gems, MS67 red and up, scarce and valuable. Errors and varieties. The 1973 penny offers several fun collectible errors. BIE errors, die cracks forming a vertical I in Liberty. Off-center strikes, highly collectible, especially dramatic examples. Clipped planchets, curved or straight clips from faulty planchet punching. Die breaks and cuds, popular with error collectors. Minor double dies, some examples show subtle doubling on lettering or the date. Market value. The value of a 1973 penny depends heavily on grade and color designation, brown, red-brown, or red. Circulated, 1 cent. MS65 red, $5 to $10. MS66 red, $30 to $50. MS67 red, $300 to $600. Proofs, PR69 deep cameo $40 to $80 plus. Major errors, $25 to $500 depending on rarity. Though common in lower grades, finding one in superb gem red condition can be surprisingly difficult, driving strong demand. Collector interest. Collectors like the 1973 penny for several reasons. It represents the last years before the U.S. Mint seriously considered eliminating or drastically changing the penny due to inflation. It's one of the largest combined mintages of the early 1970s, but high-grade survivors are scarce. Proofs from 1973 are beautifully made, and deep cameo examples attract strong demand. Error varieties make it an exciting year for collectors who enjoy the hunt. And there you have it, our countdown of the top 10 Lincoln pennies 1-cent coins. From the 1986 D with its modern minting quirks, to the 1996 penny still shining. From the later copper-plated zinc era, to the copper-rich classics of the 1960s and 1970s, each coin tells a piece of America's story. These coins may be tiny, but they're packed with history, reflecting everything from economic challenges to bicentennial celebrations. So the next time you get a handful of pennies, don't just toss them aside. Look closely. You might just discover a top 10 treasure in your pocket. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Lincoln cents, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode in the Coins Numismatic series. We'll keep bringing you the stories, secrets, and surprises hidden in America's coinage. Because in numismatics, even the smallest coin can hold the biggest story.